In this video, I'll discuss the concept of properties and properties palette. In AutoCAD, we will get a special interface called palettes, and most of the palettes can be accessed by pressing the control key and certain numeric keys. For example, if you want to get properties palette, you have to hold down the control key and press the one key simultaneously. This is the interface. And if you press Ctrl 2, you will get Design Center palette, which is meant for a different application. And if you press Ctrl 3, we will get Tools palette. But Ctrl 0 is basically used to clear the screen. You can get rid of all the ribbons and menus, and you will get maximum screen space to conduct presentations. I'll press Ctrl 0 and bring the original display back. Next, I'll create an object. Let it be a circle with the center radius option. Now I'll make a rectangle. Then an arc using a 3-point option. Next, I'll press Ctrl 1 to get the properties palette. And this palette can be either docked to any desired site like this. So it'll get docked here, or else you can drag it and it'll float on the screen. We have an auto hide feature over here. When you click on this feature, the palette will get hidden and the palette will be represented like this. And when you take the cursor onto this palette, it'll get expanded. But when you take the cursor away from it, it'll get collapsed. Now I'll just disable this feature so that it'll be visible all the time. Then we have a close button over here with which you can close this palette. Over here we have the properties button with which you can control the properties. You can move the palette, you can resize it, you can close it, you can anchor to the left, right, auto hide. You can also assign a transparency to this palette. You can increase the width of the palette like this. You can increase the length of the palette like this. You can control the height like this. Now I will dock this to the left side and I'll select the circle. When I select the circle, you can see the general properties related with the circle, such as the color, layer, line type scale, plot style, etc. And if you want to change the color, you can just select a particular color. The moment you take the cursor onto that color, you will see the object displayed in that color. Likewise, you can move along the list of colors. These are all basic colors. If you click on select colors, you will get a color selector palette in which you can see the 256 colors which are frequently used. And if you want to see more colors, click on true color. Here you can create any desired color by clicking on the spectral display. Using two methods you can create a color. One is called HSL, which is called hue, saturation, luminosity, and second method is RGB, which stands for red, green and blue. Each color will have a particular red, green and blue component, and each component can vary from 0 to 255. For example, if I keep the red at 255, which is maximum, and if I keep the green slider to 0 and the blue slider to 0, and if I keep the red slider to the maximum, the resulting color will be a perfect red. Likewise, you can mix these colors in various proportions to create any desired color. Alternatively, you can go to HSL, in which you can choose a particular shade of color which is called hue by clicking against that particular shade. Then you can change the luminance, which is nothing but the brightness of the color, by clicking on the slider. You can also control the saturation. Saturation stands for the purity of the color. When the saturation is higher, you can see that color will become a pure color. But when the saturation is low, you will see more and more gray content in that color. When the saturation is 0, it will be a perfect gray. Likewise, you can make use of any of these two methods to create any desired color. So I'll choose this particular color and I'll give OK. Now the color of the circle got changed. Next, we can change the layer of the circle. The concept of layers we will discuss in detail in the next video. You can also change the line type. But when you click on the line type, you can see that presently there is only continuous option displayed. If you want to see more line types here, then you have to load the line types. For that, you have to go to the properties panel. Then you just click on other. Then you will get the line type manager dialog box. You click on load. Then you will get load or reload line types dialog box. AutoCAD displays all the line types which are defined in the line type definition file called acadiso.lin. And you can load any desired line type from here. For example, I want dashed line type to be loaded. So click on dashed. So you will see it appearing here and just give OK. Now, if you select the object and you select the line type, you will see that particular line type loaded here. Now click on dashed. You can see that the line type got changed. Now I'll choose this rectangle and arc and I'll change the color and line type of these two objects. I'll change the color to this particular color and I'll change the line type to dashed line type. But in this magnification, you might find it a bit difficult to make out this line type. Okay, only if you zoom it, the details will be clear. So there is a scale factor in AutoCAD. which can be used to stretch and compress a line type, and the scale factor is called LT scale or line type scale factor. So I'll type LT scale. You can give the command LTS for that. Then it will ask you for a value. Presently it is set to 1. I'll make it say 3. Now you can see that the line types got stretched, as a result of which the spaces and the length of the dashes are more legible and visible now. Such a control of line type is called the global control of line type scale. But the line type scale can also be controlled locally. For that, you have to select the object and you can change the value here. You have a line type scale over here. I'll make it say 3 again. So only for this particular object, the line type scale is changed. Hence, the line type scale can be controlled globally using the LTS or line type scale command, and it can be changed locally by using the properties palette. Next, we will see the next property is line weight. I'll select the object and I'll choose a particular line weight. I'll give say 0.5. Even after providing the line weight, it is not visible. You have to activate the line weight button at the status bar toggles. Now it is visible. When you provide a line weight, it is as if you draw with a dark pencil or with a pen with a wider tip. Next property is transparency. I'll select this object and I'll click on transparency and I'll give a value 50. When you press escape, you can see that this object is displayed as a transparent object and the brightness of this object will get reduced. And next property is called thickness. Thickness is nothing but the surface that is generated from a profile in the positive z-axis direction. See, presently, apart from x and y, there is also an z-axis which is pointed towards us. And if you provide a thickness, I'll just click on the object and provide a thickness of say 50. Only if you change the view, you'll be able to see this thickness. And if you want to change your view, the easiest method is click over here, then you select southwest isometric. You can see the thickness which is given. Now I'll undo these changes. Now I'll change the transparency back to 0%. It will remain 100% opaque. Next, I'll bring the line type back to continuous. Using the properties palette, along with the properties, you can also change the various parameters related with the selected objects. I'll select the circle again, and you can see that the center point, XYZ coordinate, its radius, its diameter, its circumference, its area, and all such parameters are displayed. Suppose if I want to change the center point to a different location, suppose if I want to change the X coordinate of the center point, just click over there. You can specify it using the mouse. When you click on this button, you can manually specify it to a different location, or else you can type a value. Instead of 3091, I can give say 4000 to move the circle. And if you want, you can change the radius to a different value, and the diameter can be changed, and even the circumference. Suppose if I want the circumference to be 2200, so that change will also get accommodated on the circle. If you select more than one objects at a time like this, then it won't show you the parameters, because AutoCAD cannot find any parameter which is common to these two objects. But you can change the properties. Like you can change the color of these two objects together. Likewise, the properties can be changed. Alternatively, you can also change the properties using the properties panel. This area can be used to change the color, and over here you can change the line weight, and using this pop-up you can change the line type, and using the other option you can load the line types as we have seen before. Then when you click on this arrow in the properties panel, you can change the transparency, and you also have a list command over here, and when you select an object, you will get the complete information related with that object, like the object type, the layer in which it is appearing, its color, and all the properties listed. Along with that, you will get certain other properties like handle. Handle is nothing but a unique identification number that is assigned to each and every object by the software. Okay, so that's the use of list command. Then you have a match properties option over here. I'll draw a circle with a center radius option, and if you go to match properties, the software will ask you to select the source object. Source object is the object from which you want to extract the property and you want to apply to any other object. So this is my source object. Then you select the destination object. When you click on the destination object, all the general properties which you have seen here will get applied to the destination object. So it's a very useful option. Then we have a small arrow over here. And when you click on this small arrow, you can open the properties palette. At the top, we have an option called toggle pickad. When I click over here, I am disabling the pickad variable. When you deactivate or disable the pickad variable, what happens is when you select an object and when you select the next object, you will lose the first selection. And when you select the next one, that previous selection will not be retained. But once this picAd variable is activated, your selection will be automatically put in the additive mode. That means if you make a selection and if you move on to the next selection, you will be able to retain both the selections at the same time. So that's the use of this particular button. Then we have a select object button using which you can select any number of objects. The software will show you the properties and parameters related with that object. And we have already explored the quick select dialog, which is used to perform selection based on the criteria or conditions specified by the user. I have already covered this topic while talking about different methods of selecting objects. So that's all about the properties and properties palette. In the next video, we'll have an in-depth exposure on the concept and application of layers.